Hey, thanks once again for coming back for another episode of Rad Repairs. And I'm going to do another controller today because this particular controller has a couple of main issues. It's dirty and it's ugly. Now what do I mean by that? Well, it's NES MAX, so it's definitely not really ugly, but it's ugly in the sense that it has yellowed. That's just something a lot of these old parts suffered from. The NES was no different. The process I'm going to use today to try to whiten this back up, I actually used on an NES recently and it turned out really well. Here's a photo of it. So we're going to do the same thing with this so I can show you how I did it. There are other videos similar to this one, and a lot of those have complaints that they are damaging because they'll ripple and they'll create a design in the top, and I'll show you how to avoid that with this controller. So first thing we're going to do is take it apart and clean it up. Alright, we've got our screws out. Should just come right apart. Back just lifts off. And the cable on the board. And all the buttons. As you can see, it's pretty dirty. So we're going to take our main components over to the sink and soap and water. Alright, back from the rinse. You can tell that cleaned up really well. So you have to start with a clean plastic set here before we do our whitening. So once those are good, we'll go ahead and, since we've got all the buttons and everything here, we'll go ahead and clean up all the buttons now too. And I'm just going to use a Lysol wipe for that. Alright, to do the whitening, I'm going to use this developer oxidant from L'Oreal. You can get this on Amazon. There's a bunch of different brands you can use. Of course, there's also Retro Bright, or you could just use peroxide and soak your plastics in peroxide if you have something big enough and don't want to buy enough peroxide. But this stuff works pretty well. So, I'm just going to dump some out here in this cup. And the difference between how I do these and how you may have seen these done on YouTube already is I'm going to apply it with a paintbrush. This is going to stop the plastic that we're going to put these in from making wavy lines in our plastics, which you may have seen before, which I know a lot of people don't like this method for that reason, but it's because they pour it on, they use their fingers to smudge it in to get as much as they can on it, and then they put it in a plastic bag or something. The plastic touches that stuff, it sits in the sun, and it doesn't change the color evenly. It makes it wavy. So by using a thin coat and putting it out into the sun for 3 to 4 hours, we're going to lighten this, but we're also going to not have any of those wavy lines. So we're just going to use a thin coat. We're going to use a Ziploc bag, seal it up, and now this is ready for the sun. We'll do the same thing with our bottom. Alright, out into the sun they go. Alright, these are ready to be cleaned off. They've been in the sun for about 4 hours or so. So let's clean it off and see how it turned out. Alright, they're all washed off and it looks pretty fantastic now. An easy way to be able to tell if it took effect
is to compare the outside to the inside, because the inside hasn't been subject to the same type of external factors. And if you've got a good matching color, then you nailed it. And I tell you what, this NES Max Controller looks pretty darn good. So all we have to do now is put everything back together. Alright, so here you go. Nicely restored NES Max Controller. It is lightened and cleaned and ready for action. This method should work on any of your old retro plastics that need repair and to be lightened. So hopefully you liked this video. Don't forget to share it and hit that subscribe button for me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on Rad Repairs.